All right, so in this lesson, we're gonna do a couple of things. I'm gonna start off, actually, not on the list. I'm actually gonna start showing you guys how do I shade, because a lot of, this is one of the big questions that people has is how do you shade with all this the tool that we have. So I'm gonna do that, and also gonna do show you guys, which is on the outlines. I'm going to show you guys how manipulation of the form. I'm going to show you guys do some dissected form and wedging some of the geometric shapes, and also at the end show you guys some of surface detail that creates a sense of hierarchy. All right, so let's start with the shading first, because that's important. That's how you can create volumes and have a sense of illusion of light. And all right, so I'm mainly gonna use our artist pen, my white gel pen, and probably one of these pastel white, and then also the marker. All right, and also shadings can help also create a focal point, because ultimately in your drawings you want to have a focal point. It's like telling your stories. What's your it's like what's the punchlines you wanted to get to the audience, so audience engage to it. There's many elements you can do that. All right, so we can do we have highlights. We can do with the highlights. Earlier I said hierarchy. And this can be many things. Hierarchy can be scale different, can be perspective. Like how do you create the hierarchy with a scale, which that you're gonna feel the sense of direction to it. Gradations, so you have a gradations. Also, it's a powerful tool. Let's just put that down. And then we have line weight, which is a quick momentum. If you have, either a thick to thin, right? Or we did a boxes, which is if we have um, thicker line weight versus thinner line weights. That's gonna feel more close to us. Feel is more, it's gonna help to draw attention to the front planes less than on the side and the top. So line weight, let's write that down. And then edge. As you probably know, hard edge. With an edge we're talking about, there's hard edge. Mainly right now, there's 7 different edges, but we're just gonna focusing on 2 for now. There's hard edge and also there's soft edge. And then light does that for us. There's core shadow, and there's say a cast shadow that has a hard and soft edge, and also the atmosphere does that for us. If things close to us, it'll be sharper. If you look outside, you'll look at landscapes and things are right in front of you, or the plants, and you're going to see very lush. Oh, the color going to be very, very colorful, very lush, and always you can see all the details, smaller details. But if you look up in the horizons, all the mountains in the distance, you're not going to see the edges. It's going to be very soft because the atmosphere takes over. So in theory, things close to you is more sharper. Things away from you is a little bit softer. And obviously, sharper edges comes out, soft edge pushes back, right? And contrast. And artists love to use contrast because it's a quick way to engage. If you go, imagine you going to a art shows, especially the art show had those nice spotlights that shines on all the art pieces to make it look more dramatic. And I can guarantee you the one has the strongest contrast. It's gonna draw your attention. You're gonna walk to that pieces first, or even imagine go to a bookstore. You have a book that has the cover maybe has most intense color, bright red. It's like gonna draws your attention. So it's one of the biggest uh, the trick that artists like to use is to play with the contrast. For example, like that cube itself, maybe not so much, but if I put a like just if I put a dark, like say dark environment, and now you can notice. Let's do it with those little ball right here. Let's do that. And basically right now this whole area right here has the greatest contrast everywhere else. Or I'm even make it more greater. Let me put a white gel pen on top like this. And then I'll do a little gradation. I think everything, all the tools so far we talked about. Maybe little highlights right here. See, all this gonna create draws attention to it, right? Today if I have other drawings, so far I don't, but if I have other drawings, let's see if I have if I have an example. But they all kind of they actually because these are all mostly a demo, so they all kind of equally approached. But let's back to this marine. Like I just said, all right, I'm gonna do the same trick. Like all these again, like equally drawn. Just they all kind of the tension kind of equally spread. And but today, let me close the cap. Yeah, it's very important to close the cap. I always forget to do that, and it's not good for your pen. And if I take this tumble marker, I like tumble marker. I know it's not on the list, but I use this for my costume drawings a lot. I like it's kind of like the Kobe. It has two ended, and because he had this nice sponge end and also the fine point, and often what I'll lay in with the fine point because it's easier to control, and I'll use the sponge end to shade, and it can create an interesting shape. So what I'm gonna do, let's see, um, let's see if I want to this guy, let's say, all right, I want this guy to jump out than everybody else. So I'm going to think of shapes. Always is about shapes. Put it right here. Comes over. Let me do that. I want to show that technical, so I want to do that. Come over here and close it. All right, so I'm going to do this. Could almost put a little graphic design behind it. A lot of time my student does that because they have to present their their sketches, and they sometimes they put a little graphic shape on the back. It looks kind of nice. But now, if today this is one of the pages, and they flip over it, boom, this drawing is going to be a first read. I can guarantee you, because that has the greatest contrast, and then we're probably going to follow, and then probably gonna look at this because this has second greatest contrast, and then to somewhere else. It's fun to do that because I'm thinking our artists, just like movie directors, you can able to control how you want the viewer to look at your work. It can be a single drawings like this, right? You all look at the head of octopus first, and then take them to a, to a, to a right, so have them to look somewhere else, so the tentacles, and then actually maybe, and then look down to maybe other areas. But you have control. That's why you probably heard a term first read, second read, third read. And so contrast, all right? Let me put this aside. And we got texture. I was going to use the images again, but I'll show you guys later and in the lecture. So I know also have textures, obviously greater textures, and versus area that's more flat. All right. So you're going to notice what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with design, like design elements and things that kind of creates better and more interesting, interesting design. It's all trying to find this complementary kind of contrast. So dark against light, more more texture area versus more flat, soft edge versus hard edge, thin versus thick, gradations. It's all basically, you can see, it all has to do with the that difference. And what else? More refined, right? A lot of, I love impressions, kind of impressions art, and I appreciate the craftsmanship of you know like the Renaissance art, which is everything's more render, everything polished, it's beautiful, beautiful compositions. But I get more excited to look at impressions art, artists like Soroyas and Zorn, John Singer Sargents. Because I can see their physical, uh, the kind of physical applications on their canvas. I get really excited about. And often, usually, what they do is they have a section which is usually the portrait. Obviously, your portrait, the head's going to be nice, more, spend a little more time to render out, polish, and everything else to keep it a little bit, just like camera, kind of out of society, have that a slightly out of focus in the background, so you can focusing where you want to focus, focusing on. So area that's more refined gonna draw us attentions. So, all right, so keep these in mind. All right, so let's shade. So let's just start with cylinders. Well, it depends if you're doing a quick sketch. One of the most economical way to do it, just to follow the longest axis. So just basically just follow the long axis of the cylinder. The whole point is you want to show there's a light side, and also there's shadow side, and the core shadow, which is right here, the beginning of shadow, is always a little bit slightly darker. So you kind of go over several times to create that little darker band, right? So this basically, it's pretty, vertical, very quick, right? And we can also do it other directions. We can also do it horizontally too. Again, also a very quick block in. The whole concept, I'm going to show you a few, but the whole idea is just, to create the two separate masks. And usually I try not to put that core right in the middle, of this shape. It just sits off to the side a little bit. And but it's a little less interesting horizontal. Just a little boring. It's just, and what I probably prefer to do, I probably prefer to go diagonally like this. And it's kind of my way that how where my arm was shaped. It goes over like this. So you can do it diagonally. Di diagonal. Diagonal. You can do that. But all these are things that serve well for again for quick sketches. It doesn't have that full sense of volumes. So what you can also do, if you want to go a little bit like kind of beyond this, just basically just kind of all these somewhat just a linear strokes. We can go cross over the form, a little more physical, like sculptor cross. Take the tool and sculpt over the volumes. For example, John Singer Sargent would do this. If you look at his painting, everything he'd go with his brush go with the longest axis, so it looks very slick. But then you look like Sorolla, Joaquin Sorolla, his brush strokes would go pink cross this way. Sorry, this light right directly in my eyes. So when I look at the camera, I have to squint my eyes and cross over like this, like that. So you can kind of wrapping around. So that way you can do that, or a classical way to do it is crosshatch. I'm pretty sure all of you guys heard that crosshatch before. I'm going to put it up here. You probably end up would do this because if you're going to spend time to create something a little more refined, these probably would do it. No, these will probably do it for like say quick sketch or some area that's a little bit further back, but you want it a little more again a little more refined. You're probably gonna you have to cross hatch. What that really is it basically you kind of weave these lines and start layering them to create a darker, to give it darker values, and which is great because it's overall because you're weaving them. There's some of the paper still showing through, so you get that kind of nice transparent quality to it, versus just like dead opaque, like this black marker right here, and that's done. Once you put it down, you know it's done. So what you do is you basically just weave, and it can go over. Long as you kind of go over different directions. If, for example, if I'll make the core shot a little bit darker, I just kind of go over it this way. And you can see how the core gets a little bit darker cross edge. That's a great way to do it. All right, so you got no several choices right here. Horizontal, sorry, vertical, horizontal, diagonal, wrapping around, or crosshatch. And this other way. I remember one of the when I was in school, in one of the like drawing classes, we had to do this kind of like little broken lines that basically, well, so here's an egg, here's a core shadow of an egg, and what we gonna what so let's shade this in. Let's shade the shadow side in first. And then you can do this little stippling technique that bring out to the highlight like this. And obviously, it's there might be less, more open kind of space between the lines. You're gonna feel a little bit lighter. So all the way up, to the to the highlight. So little tiny broken line. You can can do that. One of my favorite way to do it. Well, internet shade internet shade an egg. Well, I can do it with the cylinder too. Is I like to kind of radiate, do it this kind of radiate way to do it. Means I would start from a point and kind of just this is kind of my favorite way to do it. Starting from one point and then basically like 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 a drapery. If you look at drapery, the drapery has usually has support, right? For example, right here, that's a support, and you can see how the fabric, the folds, kind of basically kind of radiate out down towards where the gravity, like that. And in nature, that's how nature works. Something we're gonna invest later, to look at. Is trying to find that pattern. And there's always, the pattern. You can call that gesture as well. Our key foundation of the drawing process is gestures, shapes, and structure. And I'm going to repeat that maybe every week. So if this course, at the end of this course, if you can't remember anything, but all I want you to remember is just three steps, and I'm pretty sure you can do that. Gesture, shape, and structure. All right. So and that's makes sense to me because that's 1D, this is 2D, and this is 3D. Doesn't matter today if you do fine art, illustrations, animations, game art, whatever. What what you work for. they might have different terms, you call it. Animation, they call line mass and form. It's the same idea. And today, like I said, I'm able to teach in different classes, different majors. And like I said, I taught fine arts and taught illustrations. And also right now, basically right now, I'm only teaching for animation and game art or entertainment art. It's all because of this three process. And and so if you can, you know, if we practice, understand what these three elements really it's about, and I guarantee you're gonna produce beautiful, beautiful stuff, beautiful art. And but it's just three words, but it's big. There's still kind of sub elements within them, but these are the like the core, like core foundation, foundations, um, foundation elements you need to remember. So could be gestures. Like there's sense of momentum in life. There's in nature. There's always this sense of momentum. That's the way I like to do it. If I want to make it darker at the core, I'll do my crosshatch. I just can. Two ways I can do it. I can go over one more time, and it just that whole core is going to be darker. Or you can do it as simply following the plane. If you have which a lot of time, this is also what you're going to be seeing the nature will provide to you. It's like this, right? A lot usually first usually at first we break things down just to two plane. Like everything you see here, you can divide simply the two plane, top and the side, right? Front and the side. But usually there's a secondary plane, which is the corner plane. And this is probably often what you will see. You see top and you see a corner plane, and actually there's a side plane. Let's give it a little bit. Let's put a side plane right here. Let's just say right here. And you can also shape by following the planes. It means if this plane goes this way, and this plane goes this directions, and that plane goes this directions, you can create volume this way too. But you notice my value size is slightly a little different. It's darker when we come down to that side plane, right? Because if you have the same value goes around it, you're still not going to have that convince us this thing goes wraps around. You might can feel it, a physical mark that can take us around it, but in terms of values, it's not going to work because everything again. The reason why we can see foreign is because of value difference, right? So we can do that. This is a safe way to do it because when you're looking at a subject, you probably will see these planes. And then if you don't know exactly how to shade, you can't really figure out where the shadow, halftone, and the highlights. Then just do this when we draw bugs. You get because the bug have this kind of hard shell on the body. If you can't really see, a lot of times they are super colorful and hard to see where the difference between halftone and shadows, and then you can just do this, and you will at the end will still read. So you can basically just carving over the plane this way. You can do a stippling like this. You can do a radiant, which is energetic like this. So use all this, all this way you can shade. And earlier I talked about textures. So like I just said, let the, I'm gonna create a focal point right here in front of this egg. I'm gonna just put a bunch whatever textures, and I'm gonna make it also do that earlier I say things goes further away from you gets a little bit less contrast. I'm also gonna do that too. So I get smaller, softer. slowly kind of fades out like this. See, the gaps are opens it up too, like it does. Kind of just kind of diminish into the distance. And even I'm gonna do that. If you give, I'm gonna even give a little hard shadow, stronger shadow in the front. Like that. And I'm gonna also give a contrast. So that's textures. Now I'm gonna give a little highlight. Stronger highlight in the front. And the same thing, just fades out. Again, you still want to carry the highlight through that momentum, all right? You don't want the highlight just stuck in one area. Again, light move, that luminosity moves across towards it, that gestures. All right, that's highlight right there. And, oh, the other thing is, you're gonna notice, you can observe this yourself. Often, right by the cast shadow, this is the cast shadow. Let's go back to the edge. So this is the core shadows. Core shadow, which is beginning of a shadows, and core shadow has a soft edge, most likely. Either a hard edge or sorry, either soft edge or probably firm edge. When you meet a corner, so there's sometime, for example, if you're drawing a human figure, a nose, right? It looks more boxier. The core shadow on the nose is gonna feel more firm versus somewhat more rounded area like torso arm is gonna look more like cylindrical volumes. The core shadow gonna feel a little bit softer, but it's not gonna be hard. And the opposite to that, the cast shadows is gonna be a hard edge. So you can throw a hard line if you want, like that. And you guys probably all know the reason the cast shadow is created is because in this case, because the egg blocking the light. Let's say the light source coming this way, coming down on this egg. So the area that blocking by the egg is going to create this cast shadow. And then if you observe carefully, right next to the cast shadow, it's going to seem brighter. That's why I put some of these lights on the side. And that's for two reasons. One, because the simultaneous contrast, the hard edge, it just, it make everything on beside it looks more, to give a little more contrast to everything that's beside it. Second of all, that's the first chance the light can get by this egg. The first chance the light can get by this egg is where all these edges. So for both reasons, for the contrast of line way, and then the scientific reason, which that's where light can get skip by the egg, just skip by the subject that blocking it, and that's the first chance that the light can land on. All right, so if you want to know where to put light besides the subject itself, and you can put someone right next to a cast shadow. So that's edge, soft edge, hard edge, and then let's also give a gradations. Either way, I want you to look from this way to that way or this way to this way. Let's go over, I guess let's go over this way. So I'm going to give a little gradations. So see, eventually you're going to start kind of, again, that create that focal point. You have textures, you have highlights, you got busy areas, more flat area, you have gradations, you got everything. So this what you're gonna do when you start working to your drawings. I don't need you guys to render the whole thing. And imagining like for later on when we start drawing the actual subject, the fun stuff. Every week I have my class to do 8 pages, a single pages like this. All right, that's a lot of drawing to do. Well, it's not so much like this is my demo, but you can imagine if you want to do a pure sketch of fun like this, you can. But usually, as I mentioned, these sketchbooks gonna be more of a journal for you. It's not really a pretty sketchbook, it's gonna be a like I say, a study journal that when you looking into the sketchbook, you can learn something from it. To me, this is more important. This is the core value of this class. I know all you guys can draw beautiful drawings, but you can do that in a separate sketchbook. For this lessons, I want the sketchbook to be more, like I said, a study journal. So in your sketches, I don't need every drawing to be fully rendered. Some of drawing can be done very quickly, especially with some of the usually when we get to this actual subject, um, I'll have the student do a profile view, which is purely study of proportion. That's the best view to study proportion. Just find a profile image, figure out all the units and the silhouettes, the relationship of silhouette, how big the head compared to the body, and then do a 3/4 do a construction breakdown, like perspective, figure out where all the most simple shapes and the volumes. That doesn't take that much time. And then you can do one which is a little more, more refined. But all you need to do is just pick a sections and then spend a little more time. Like just for example, that eight, spend a little more time in the area. Often usually is head. If you involve the head, that's where to go. Spend a little more time to shape and just leave the rest of it just kind of, you can just leave the rest of it just line drawing, sketch, just as a blocking if you want, right? So you have enough time to get it done. All right. Ultimately, when you want to get it done. I have some student, they just game buster and they want to try to make every single drawing big or small, like tidy render. By the end, they can't get assignment done. So I don't think that's smart. And plus, like I said, I mentioned it. I don't need this to be beautiful. I want something that you can learn. You can learn from it. All right. Uh, so so these are the way that you can shade and create create a focal point. We can use a marker too. Marker is just super quick. So I take number 6. And then one of nice thing about marker, because if you go over several times in one area like this, it's gonna get darker. Right, so that's kind of easy to do. You can do a gradations like that too. And I'm gonna take my number. This is number 3, and I'm just gonna glaze over. Almost feel like grabbing some of these darker marker on the shadow side, and just gonna grab into my light like this. When it dries, it's gonna get a little bit darker, and then you come back with your highlight. Find where light, the hottest spot. Start from that point and just push it down and just carrying it out like this. See, super quick. It looks and very slick. You want to go back and darken the chord again. You can still do that. You want to get, and like I say, very slick. It works very well for slick surface, and shinier surface works really well, which we'll get to that when we get to the mechanical subject. All right, so these are several choices you can use. Sometimes depends on the subject too. You have more cleaner surface or more textural surface or more bumpy surface, bumpy surface or more furry like the animals has. And some it depends on what the choice is. Depends on the subject and to make these choices. All right.